I filmed my life like an analog horror movie and it cured my burnout. Right now you are trapped in a frictionless prison. You don't notice it because the walls are made of high-definition glass and the floors are paved with hyper-optimized algorithms. But if you sit completely still for 3 seconds, you can feel the pressure of it crushing your skull. A few months ago, I realized I had stopped experiencing reality. I was merely performing it. Every time I made a cup of coffee, went for a walk, or looked out a window, a passive, subconscious part of my brain was formatting it for an invisible audience. I wasn't a person anymore. I was a content engine operating in a permanent state of digital surveillance. And the burnout wasn't just physical, it was existential. In the late 18th century, philosopher Jeremy Bentham designed the panopticon, a circular prison where a single watchman could observe all inmates. But the inmates could never see the watchman. Because the prisoners never knew exactly when they were being watched, they had to assume they were always being watched. They internalized the surveillance. They became their own guards. This is the psychological reality of growing up digital. We inhabit a modern panopticon. The metrics, views, likes, shares, the optimization of our aesthetics, have forced us to look at ourselves from the third-person perspective. We treat our real lives like a product launch. And when your entire existence requires a constant, high-definition performance, your ego eventually fractures. I tried everything to fix it. Dopamine detoxes, screen time limits, deleting apps, but the psychological phantom remained. The urge to be perceived was a sickness. So I decided to stop fighting the surveillance. I decided to hijack it. I decided to turn my daily life into a psychological horror film. The experiment was simple but strict. For 30 days, I would document my life. But I banned 4K resolution. I banned vibrant colors. I banned optimization. Every piece of footage I captured had to be degraded, stripped of its digital perfection, and formatted like a declassified, anonymous archive from the mid to late 20th century. If I walked down an empty hallway, it wasn't an aesthetic vibe for an Instagram story. It was a liminal space under investigation. If I sat at my desk in the dark, I wasn't a burnt-out creator. I was the asset navigating an anomalous event. Look at how the human brain reacts to a drop in fidelity. When you look at an Ultra HD image, your brain is passive. It receives all the data effortlessly. But when you look at grainy, high-contrast, low-res footage, your brain has to work. It has to fill in the missing pixels. It re-engages your imagination. By degrading my environment, I forced myself to actually look at it again. The world stopped being a smooth, boring interface. It regained its texture. It regained its mystery. By day 10, something fascinating happened inside my head. A profound psychological shift that experts call aestheticized dissociation. Normally, dissociation is a negative coping mechanism, a way to detach from trauma. But when done intentionally through art, it becomes a superpower. When my real-world anxieties piled up, emails I hadn't answered, projects that were failing, the suffocating pressure of uncertainty, I didn't let them crush me. Instead, I framed them within the lore of the archive. The stress wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to the character in the video. By watching my life unfold through the lens of a historical mystery, I created a psychological buffer. I decoupled my core ego from my immediate circumstances. For the first time in years, I could observe my problems without being drowned by them. Think about the irony. Modern self-care content tells you to romanticize your life by making it look like a luxury commercial. Pastel colors, lo-fi beats, perfect lighting. But that requires immense energy to maintain. It creates a gap between your messy reality and your polished ideal. Analog horror doesn't ask you to be perfect. In this genre, the glitches, the errors, the shadows, and the decay aren't mistakes. They are the core narrative. By making my life look broken, I finally felt permitted to be human. Why are we, as a generation, so profoundly obsessed with the textures of a past we never lived through? Why do we crave the tracking errors of VHS tapes, the hiss of cassette decks, the low-poly look of early digital games? There is a word for this, anemoia, nostalgia for a time you've never known. But from a psychological standpoint, anemoia isn't just a retro trend. It's an act of active neurological rebellion. We are romanticizing the pre-smartphone era because it represents a world with boundaries. A world where information had friction. You had to physically go get it. It couldn't follow you into your pocket, screaming for your attention every 3 seconds. By forcing my brain to inhabit this artificial past, I cured my algorithmic attention span. The endless scrolling stopped because the high-speed dopamine loops require a specific environment to survive. They need bright colors, constant movement, and instant gratification. Analog horror operates on the exact opposite principles: slow pacing, heavy silence, and hidden details. I didn't just change my content style, I rewired my neurological environment. At the end of the 30 days, I tried to turn the 4K camera back on. I tried to film a normal, bright, optimized video. I couldn't do it. It felt invasive, it felt fake. Gen Z doesn't have an attention deficit disorder. We have an authenticity deficit. We are suffocated by the blinding clarity of a world that demands we be constantly visible, constantly productive, and constantly perfect. We hide in the shadows of subcultures, liminal spaces, and analog horror because the dark is the only place left where we aren't being tracked, quantified, and sold. Because your life isn't a feed to be optimized, it's an archive waiting to be discovered.